Hello, everybody, and welcome to another House Salt live show. This is our live show and book pick for March. We're a little bit late here, but yes, we read Jade City by Fonda, which is the first book in this trilogy. My name is Marines. My channel is My Name is Marines, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars.
I'm Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. I also gave it a 3. I think I might have given it a 3.5 when I first read it like a few weeks ago, but I think it's settled at a 3.
I'm Jordan from the Jordan Journals, and I gave it, I think, a 2 stars. I have no feelings.
Okay, so we say this a lot. I think there's a lot of times where we read something and we're like, dang, we can't squeeze out like an hour discussion out of this. And then we do. We usually get around to that. But today for real, I'm like, I had no thoughts about this. And also there's only 3 of us today.
Yes.
So Paige is on vacation, Kayla got sick, Connor started a new job. So we're all over the place right now.
Yes.
So the 3 of us have to scrounge together feelings about this book, which we were all so excited for.
We were
and
so excited.
sick.
Oh,
We have to stop being excited for things.
we
I
do.
know.
We do. It ruins it.
Expectations low.
It never works out.
I guess, I mean, I usually start diving right into like the elements of it, but because we had such high expectations and we're all at this like mid level, like, big picture, why didn't this work for you?
So it's interesting because I've only really heard good things about this, but I hadn't necessarily heard a bunch of what it was about. So it's not like I went in necessarily with certain expectations. I just expected to like it. Like I didn't. No one really like warned me about, oh, like it's slower at the beginning, or which would have been fine. And it is like, it's not like I don't like slower books, but the way that this was with like actually kind of low on the fantasy, very sort of slow and much more just about like sort of political machinations. But I tend to like books like that too, and this just didn't really resonate. I think it was just I hadn't heard anybody not like it, so I just assumed that I would, for whatever reason. And then it was fine. It wasn't a badly written book. It wasn't a bad book. I didn't hate it, but it was just like this isn't resonating in the way that I was hoping it would.
This is very much a book that is not for me. I don't think it's like a badly written book or a bad book, but it is very low on the fantasy. There's like hardly any magic in it. It's much more like political and character driven. It's just like a lot of things that I tend to struggle with in books were like all present in this book. So it had a lot of things working against it that made it really hard for me to get invested and to read through it. So it just was like and if I had known any of those things going into it, I probably wouldn't have chosen to read it.
Yeah, I had like a hard time coming because I kept going round and round with like this idea of it's not the book, it's me, maybe for the same reason. Like, what are the ways that this book maybe isn't for me? And I'm also like not in the best reading mood right now, like generally. And the things that I've been choosing to pick up are shorter, faster paced, like things that are better for my brain, which this was not it. So I've been kind of going back and forth about like how much is my fault versus the book's fault. But I finished this when we had our original live scheduled or whatnot. And in the time that has like lapsed, I've just been like, no, some of this is the book. Like I feel like some of it is the book. There are portions of it that probably aren't like 100% for me, but there's something missing here. I think like a spark with the characters or the characterization, something gripping, especially in the first half of this book. It was so tedious and so slow. So I do. And then after I started like, putting out feelers out there, like, oh, I'm not really enjoying this. I too, Sam, people were like, well, the first book is slow, but the last book is amazing. And I'm like, it's not what I signed up for.
Right. Like
Yeah.
no one
Yeah.
said this. And that's why, because I felt I was the first one to finish, as I usually am, dear audience. So I was kind of like, oh, I'm going to be the one that's sort of like a bummer in this. And everybody, all of us who have like pretty different tastes, we're all like, no. And it's like, so it's not, so it just was a very weird experience to have all of us be also like, no. And then it's like, well, then what are we missing as far as like, and again, reading it, like the synopsis and stuff, it was like, oh, this seems like something I could and then it just didn't resonate. So yeah, I feel like the way that this has been sort of like talked about is a little bit at fault here. It's not other people's like responsibility to make you necessarily like a book or not, but like I really feel like other books that are slow like this, people tell you like, the first 75% of it is gonna be real slow and then the end is worth it or whatever, and like no one said that with this.
Yeah. I mean, in the comments said, I feel like the whole book was just business meetings. And that is but the thing is,
true.
If anybody had described it as like a book full of like mafia business meetings and the first 75% is slow, I too would be like, that's not for me, especially not now.
Right.
So, okay, I guess we'll go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, I guess we'll dig into all of this a little bit more as we kind of go through this, and we'll start with the characters. Jordan, you like said before that it was like a character-driven book, and I feel
like it's supposed to be a character-driven book,
yes,
but I also like did not care about any of them. Anybody. And I was like, I feel like you are trying so hard to make me love these characters and invested in their lives, because that's literally all we're reading about for 500 pages, but I don't care about any of you.
Yeah.
I did care about some a little bit more. Like I liked the female characters much more than any of the male characters, but also I was at the point that if any of them died, I would be like,
that sucks.
Yeah. And then when they did, it was like,
like, and then when they did die, yes. Like, okay, cool, you died.
All right.
Yes. So I feel like in a lot of ways, there are a lot of things that this book did where it was not quite one thing and not quite the other. It was like very like in a weird middle ground. And I feel like this balance between like plot driven and character driven is one of those that I wish it had leaned one way or the other, and it didn't quite, because all of the characters all read flat to me, and there's so many of them at the beginning that I honestly I didn't know who I was reading about for so freaking long. I was just throw another name at me. I have no idea who.
And they all have like the same names, or they're part of like the same families, and so they just like started to meld into like one thing in my brain, because
this book needed
like
an index
distinction.
Yes, they needed an index or like a family tree. Like I was sitting there like when I first started reading it, and I was like pissed off because I know not everyone uses an index. However, some books like really need it, and it's like this, like a family tree and how the families are like aligned, and everything would have been like perfect, like who's in what role, whatever. And even just some of the like, this is a little bit of a nitpicky thing, but the descriptions of some of the cars I thought were fake. Like I thought those cars were fake cars, and then I had to Google it and be like, "That's a real car." Like that type of car is real, and so like that was even like I didn't even notice that. Like, yeah, so and so then I even had a hard time being like, what's sort of like the time period, because these are all like sort of 1920s gangster cars.
Interesting.
I had to like look them all up.
But they had cell phones, right? Did they have cell phones?
Did they?
Did they? They might. I don't remember. Did they?
I feel like yes. I wanted to say yes. That was my first inclination.
I don't think they were texting. Right?
I'm also reading House of Earth and Blood, where they do have fantasy cell phones.
Yes.
So
yes.
Maybe it's getting mixed up.
I feel like they don't have cell phones. I feel like there's house phones, because they will call. Okay. Yeah, someone said I don't think so. They'll like call someone. So there's phones. Like they'll call someone. It's like a house phone, probably like a rotary dial. I don't know. We don't know. So I had no way to like place like the timeline of this either. Not that it's based in reality necessarily, but like
right. But like the 20s would make sense if it's like a mafia.
Yes,
sure.
But I also now not once ever thought in my brain that this was the 20s. Like that never happened in my brain.
Because it's hard to place what's going on. Like it's just, yeah, it was hard for me to like picture a lot of things in a world that I think should have been kind of easy to picture, like atmospheric wise, and it just kind of wasn't.
I guess so. I'm trying to sit here and think. Okay, we'll go down the list of the characters, and I know we just said like we don't really have feelings about them, but I mean we were supposed to. And I forgive me if I mispronounce any of these because I forgot everybody's name and I had to like look it back up. But Lan,
that was the one that died, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was starting to sort of like not like him, but like I found his sort of arc almost the most compelling until he died because it was like you're trying to be good and like you're the you were the kid that like the grandfather never really liked, well besides Hilo too, but like it was just he's doing his best. So I was finding him like a little bit more entertaining, and like his dynamic with his wife like ran away from him and stuff, and then all of a sudden he dies, and I for a second I was like, is he not dead? And then they were like, there's a body, and I was like, oh, okay, he's dead.
That was one of the few moments of the book that surprised me.
Yeah,
it happened because it happened really quickly. I feel like within like a paragraph or two, he was like the whole thing had happened, and I, yeah. He's probably one of the only characters that I was actually starting to latch on to, and then he died.
And then he died.
And that also the moment of like, oh, of course. Like, okay. And then he dies, and I was like, okay.
Yes. Because at that point, like we hadn't really gotten much about like Shay or anybody, so like it was just really like him and Hilo. I feel like, and I liked him slightly more just from like a storyline perspective.
As I was looking stuff up to remind myself about names and things like that, I kind of got the vibe that Hilo is a fan favorite, and that shocked me. Really, I mean, maybe it shouldn't because I don't know, maybe it shouldn't be that shocking, but I honestly no.
He's like the bad boy fighter brother. Like that feels like something the fandom would like.
Yes. Like of all of the bad choices that were made in this entire thing, like 90% of them belong to Hilo. And I was just like, why are you like this?
I liked him more like when Lan was still alive and he was like the Horn, and it's like he sort of has to be this way. Like he has to be like the fighter dude, like whatever. I do not like him as the guy in charge. I found him much more compelling in the role that like he was suited for, and I guess that's the whole point, is they're going to be like, look, he wasn't ever supposed to be like in charge and blah blah blah. But I just am like, yeah, but I don't really want to see him being in charge then.
Right. At that point, I would have like rather seen Shay in charge than him.
Yes.
I think that would have been more interesting.
Chris in the comments says that Hilo stands are unhinged. Really, anyone who dislikes him, which also fitting with the type of character that he is, like to have like I guess not only stands but like a very divided fandom on him, and just like people going to the mat for him, and then others being like ew.
He's that very typical character that
he's
exactly what he
he fit that trope well, and honestly there was not anything there that I felt was like super compelling, so I was just kind of like over him really. All right, so I think that leaves our favorite sibling as Shay. In the very beginning of the book, when I was like really struggling to like enjoy anything, her scenes where she's like looking into the Jade factory and everything, like those were the ones that I was like living for, because a breath of fresh air, something I am interested in. And she did, I mean, again, we're talking relative here. None of them are super exciting to me, but she was relatively my favorite out of all of these. So
yeah, I do find her like she's going to get pulled back into the fold, and so it was kind of tedious where she's like no, and I'm like, just put your fucking Jade on. Like, you know, like,
gonna put your Jade on.
yes, like, come on. And I did like when she comes and she's like the weatherman and she like is sort of doing that kind of stuff. Like, I tend to like more of those like conniving characters anyway. But yeah, again, it's just like the pacing of how long it took people to get to that point. It's like, it doesn't need to be this slow.
Yes. And I guess there, but no.
That was all I had.
I guess there's one other like main character, the cousin.
The cousin, yeah.
Andon?
Yeah, Andon. Any feelings about Andon, the cousin?
Towards the end, so like when everything happened at the end and like he helps Hilo and it's sort of like, okay, is he gonna go crazy because like he's the, I don't know, the Targaryen family like of this world. It's one of those like, okay, like what's gonna happen with him now that he's been sort of brought in and like he maybe can't handle his Jade or whatever. But again, it was just like, I feel like they flipped back and forth with him a lot because he would be like really present and then like we wouldn't get his POV for like a very long time. And it's like, well, then I can't really get even attached to you. And then we also had that random POV of like the kid that stole the Jade at the beginning.
Yes.
We would like get him as this like who I like hated. I know you're supposed to like not like him, but I was just like, oh, you're so annoying. So we would get him occasionally that would like break up the pacing of things. I just felt like him and Andon broke up the pacing of things. Like, just I would rather of them, even though I didn't like love the three siblings, I would rather them just stuck to the three siblings.
Yes, I agree. I think the switching of the pacing was, or the points of view was especially tedious in the beginning when we have all of these characters. It is going very slow, and I feel like I just couldn't latch on to anything because not only are there all these characters and like the plot is moving slow, but then we just kept switching points of view, and it like just it was too much. I felt I don't know. We needed less of something here.
Yeah.
Business meetings.
Less business
meetings. Less negotiations for sure.
Yeah. Beyond the main characters, anybody else that you would like to mention? A shout out for anybody who stood out to you?
Well, people are mentioning like the villain.
Yeah,
like the Ayat Mata or whatever.
Yes. And Ghost.
Is that her fist?
Her horn.
Her horn.
Or her fist or whatever. Yeah. Again, I can't even keep track of all the things anymore because my brain has like gotten rid of it. I found her interesting, and I almost wish we were following her.
Yes,
because she's the one that like had to like destroy the entire clan, and is like she's one of those villains that reminds me of like the like the more like modern villains of like you sort of see their point where she's like, like I'm wanting to like bring everything together and like do this and do that. So I found her like fairly interesting and wish we could actually get her POV if we're going to get all these extra POVs.
Yes, I agree. It's funny that you call her a villain too, because I
don't really even think that she was. I know she's supposed to be the villain.
She's an antagonist.
I saw her as the villain.
She's an antagonist.
As the antagonist. I saw crap. No, I can't remember if it was like an interview or somebody quoting an interview with Fonda Lee in which they basically said like they didn't want to write like heroes or villains or anything like that. It was just perspectives, right? No good guys, no bad guys. I'm just presenting perspectives. So, and after I read that, I was like, yep, that to me, because I didn't feel like I was rooting for anybody, because you have no true heroes and no true villains. Like I felt like I didn't have anything, and I understand why that would be appealing to especially people who really like morally great characters or whatever. There is a wealth of them here, I would say, but I felt like there wasn't like a point to latch onto, somebody to root for. Even it's not somebody to root for. I didn't have anything I was rooting for to happen. Like I didn't even know what I wanted to happen. Whatever happens, whoever dies, dies. And that's what I feel like was missing from this, was like, I don't know, some buy-in for your audience.
Well, that's why that's why like having heroes and villains works so well, is because it gives you something as the audience to like get engaged with and root for and like want to see happen. And when you just have like perspectives that you're just like reading about their lives, it's like exactly what is there really for you to root for, latch onto, get invested in.
I kept thinking about the Daevabad trilogy. I don't know if either of you, City of Brass and stuff, if you've read those. It's not they're not similar books, but I think they explore similar themes where that series does the same kind of thing with there's no necessarily like one right party. But that series I think does it better because I actually pull for like all of the characters in that series.
I think she would have
Even
had to write
though
stronger characters for that.
yes, so like it's one of those things that's like this can be done, and I can really like it when it's done well. Like that series is also a lot of political machinations, but I love it. Where like this one, I'm like, yeah, but I don't care. I don't care how this turns out. And then there isn't also the added coolness of the magic because there's so little magic that I'm like, this is barely a fantasy.
Yes.
Yes. Christopher in the comments says, even though some of the aspects of this didn't work for us, why do you think the author chose to write it the way that she did? And I think it's right along with what you're saying, Sam, in terms of like comparing it to other like series that give you that set, like give you that like buy-in into all of the characters and make them all a little bit right and all a little bit wrong, and the way that that gives you like investment into the characters. And I just really like, I enjoyed some of the like the premise here, especially with the idea of like these green bones having once been the protectors of this place and like the warriors of this place, but now being in this place and now being in these positions where they've lost a lot of that, and all they're interested in is like really like the mafia side of it, the family side of it, and how like what happens when people sort of have been born into a mafia family, have been born into these roles, like what sorts of people do they turn out to be. So I understand the like the idea of then writing the story with no heroes and no villains, only perspectives. I just don't think it was done very well.
Yeah, and it was even like we've been talking about, there's other parts that I almost wish they would have explored instead. Like it would have been almost cool to see like the original, like the green bone, like when the mountain and like the you know, like the two granddads from the two families, like when they were doing stuff and it was like guerrilla warfare, like that would have almost been more cool to see. Seeing like the Ayat or whatever her name is, like taking everything down, like the part that the author like chose to focus on, I'm still kind of like, why? I mean, I guess like Mari was saying, it is sort of what happens when you have all of these like expectations and like legacies and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just feel like that again just didn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of a foundational book this is.
I mean,
like I feel like there has to be like some larger thing happening to have such huge fans of the later books, but again, like this one felt like there was not like one specific thing that we were focusing on or like working towards or rooting for. Yeah. So I wonder how much of it is like truly just foundational information that you need.
Which again, I would have liked people to be like, yeah, remember like the first book is very foundational. I'm like, cool, thank you for telling me. The thing that always was throwing me off as I was reading it is the second book is called Jade War. And I was like, but we're in a war right now. Why is the second book like, what's different?
Wait, I forgot, what is this one called?
This one's Jade City. Second book,
Jade City.
War.
Okay, and then Jade Legacy.
Yeah,
which makes sense for like if it's like going into the legacies of these people and like what it means to be a part of these legacies. And that's
apparently
what we're
the second
towards.
book is taking place over like years too. So
okay, I'm skipping ahead because this is usually how we close the show. But now I'm curious, like, are you guys going to continue to read in the series? Jordan's like, no.
I'm waiting for Jordan to say no first.
I want to know the hype in the 5 stars are it's so intriguing. Like I want to know what people love about it so much.
Especially
but then also
Jade Legacy. I've heard so many about Jade Legacy that I'm like, what is it?
But I have to read them right now or I won't ever go back to them. So I don't know if that's what I want to do right now.
Well, that's when I finished the first book, whenever that was, that I finished like binging it. I was like, okay, I got to move on or else I never will. But I haven't yet. And I'm like, oh, no, I never will.
Yes, I am the exact same as all of you. Like I was I always intended to read the full series, and now I'm kind of like, oh, I'm not super motivated. But I know that if I don't, I'm gonna forget, and then I'm gonna try to get into it, and I'm gonna like not know what's going on.
Nobody wants to reread this book.
And no, I don't want to reread it. So, but a lot of people have said, so I did a wrap up where I talked about this book, and a lot of people, like, I did have one person say, this was the fastest pace of all the books. So if you didn't like this one, and I was like, no. But most people said that they also felt like, or people that were responding to my comments, that they were a little bit iffy about Jade City, but then got like really hooked in Jade War.
Okay.
So
maybe
I'm
I
like,
should start it, try it, and if I can't get engaged in it, I'll just call it quits.
I just want to be. I don't like picking up things that I think I might not like.
And like
I know.
it feels like homework
either.
at this point where
Yes.
I get to it. So if I don't get to it soon, what I suspect will happen is that like years down the line, I'll just be like, I'm in the mood.
Now's the time.
Slow character heavy book. Reread it and be like, this is amazing, actually, or whatever. Move on. But I think that's more likely than like going on to book 2 right now, because I forgot everybody's name. I literally had to look up who everybody was.
I also kind of feel like since so little did happen, maybe it'll be easier for whenever we pick it back up that it won't be a problem, because it's like, okay,
you just have to remember the character dynamics.
Right. The one dude died. Shay is the weatherman. Andon might go nuts. And Hilo is like the horn now, but really shouldn't be.
You're right. We don't really need
Shine.
Maybe we'll write ourselves little notes to be like, here's what happened, so that when we eventually want to pick it back up, like, we're ready.
But I've also seen, so I was looking at reviews on Goodreads before coming here, because I was like, I have no feelings. I need to see other people's feelings. And so many people were rating it, the first one, 5 stars. And it's just, if we're not on the same page with the first book, are we going to be for book 2 or 3?
So, okay, in the comments, Jade War is definitely slower paced, but has better what do you mean slower paced? Like, how, what do you mean?
How much slower can you be?
Yes. Like,
you guys don't understand that this, I mean, I'm talking about this book, and forgetting it or whatnot. But to be honest, the reason that no space in my brain was picking up is because I was like binging this to get out of it. I was in pain throughout the beginning of this book because I was like so bored. And the reason it's not less than 3 stars to me is that I don't think it's a bad book. I think that there's a skill here. There's some quality to like the writing and what was like some of the foundations. I had a miserable time trying to
I was listening to it on 2 times speed, which is unheard of for me. So because I wanted to just escape the book.
Yes.
So I don't know.
I wanted to get out of it. And that doesn't feel like it should be like the experience like I'm having. And it doesn't make me super motivated to continue to pick up ones, especially if they're going to be slower paced. I can't.
You're not wrong.
Maybe not for this reading mood. Who knows ever, but definitely not now.
But if the conflict's more interesting and people are saying that Shay has some like interesting stuff that happens, maybe. But I'm just, again, for all of the gushing, I don't understand.
What is the gushing specifically about? Is it like the world building, the characters, the like?
No one's
probably not the ships, but like, what is it?
I do think people like. I have heard people really like the characters. But I never really got like, usually when people gush about something and like don't really say why, like if they have similar opinions to me about other books, I'm like, okay, I'm probably gonna like this. And that didn't happen here. I'm very conflicted. People are saying like, I don't really think this is for you guys. If you don't like the first book, then I don't. But like, who is it for? Like that's something that I'm trying to like figure out. Is
because
like, well, for you. Like
for me, it makes sense. I read a lot of like YA fantasies, so like it makes sense. But like you love adult fantasy, so how come it doesn't work for you?
It should work for me. That's what's making me so mad. Like I love the David Bond trilogy. I love the Poppy War. Like all of these things, and yet here we sit.
Yeah, like
well, it's just not for you. But why?
Sitting here thinking too, like, okay, I just said that this book made me miserable. So, I kind of want to rewind and say what made me miserable about it is that I had to finish it. If I had been in a situation where I was just reading it for me, I would have read that beginning and been like, not now. this is slow.
Yeah.
Now is not the time. Maybe I can come back to this later. But the fact that I had to finish it and I just was not like hooked by the story and it wasn't the correct reading mood for me, I think that that's more what made me miserable. So that's that 50% that
Absolutely.
it's me, not the book. And then
Yeah.
the other 50% was this book really, I don't know. It needed a little more oomph in something. The characters, the plot, the magic, the world. Like it needed a little extra something in one of those areas to make it like good versus.
So people are saying I liked all the sort of business dealings and politics and like none of the characters and then one ship and then someone saying you need to love the mafia drama. I do like mafia drama. Here's the problem. Like I love morally gray characters doing bad shit. So like there's no reason that I shouldn't like this. People sitting here being like, you have to like the politics. I do like the politics of it all. Give me politics. Yeah. Give me people being bad. Give me people in fights on the streets. We love to see it.
No, I do also like political intrigue in books in the right mood. I think maybe where this missed for me was a little bit. So let's go back because we've talked some about like, the magic and the world. And like how I think somebody said in the chat, you could take the magic all out of this and it would be the same story. I also feel like we talked a little bit about this being kind of displaced in time. And I also feel like there was something about the world that felt like the political intrigue was there, but the world felt a little small to me sometimes, or like I didn't have a good view of the scale of the world. So there were some world building things here that, again, I thought had good foundations, but weren't great. And so because I didn't love the world and I didn't have a good view of the world, that also meant that the political intrigue part of it, I was just kind of like, whatever. Like it didn't, and then the characters were whatever. So I didn't care about the intrigue because I didn't care what the characters were doing, sort of thing.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those things that's like, there wasn't enough in any of the areas to like necessarily hook. Like the world wasn't intriguing enough to hook me. The magic wasn't intriguing enough to hook me. The characters were like almost there, but not quite. And then the plot stuff was like, because you didn't have everything else, the plot stuff really didn't matter so much, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoyed the introduction of Shine and them like stealing Jade and like hiding it away and like making like the counterfeit in the books and stuff. And like, there were parts of it that I really liked, but I don't feel like it went anywhere with any of it.
Yeah. There's some of that Jade, like I at first I was very intrigued about like the use of Jade and like the manufacture of Jade and everything. But I also felt that kind of fell a little bit flat because it did feel like if you took some of this out, it would essentially be the same story. So there wasn't enough, I don't know, there.
I mean, it could really just be very buff people fighting each other and then like an illegal street drug.
Yes.
Same book.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel bad. Because like, I don't know. I feel bad because I had high expectations, which is part of this. I think that if I had just come in with no expectations, this would have just been like a fun 3-star read. And now it's like a disappointing 3-star read because I expected 5 stars. But and again, I don't think it's bad. I just wish it had been more.
Yes.
And that I had read it at a different time.
I
think that played a big part in it as well.
Anything else about the plot or the world or the magic that you guys wanted to comment on?
No.
No.
I will say that the dynamic in the chat, because I've been reading things in the chat a little bit about people trying to explain to us why it's about us and not the book. I don't love that. I don't love that. I will say,
I said 50,
really making me.
It's fully me. I know that this book was not for me. I really want these books to be for me. I want to expand my reading horizons, but this one was not for me.
Yes.
I'm
Am I
However,
still gonna try book 2? Maybe.
yes, and the thing is like it's Aries season, so tread carefully in the chat, fam. But like this idea of like, oh well, you just didn't, no,
You
don't
didn't get
don't
it.
do that with me. In fact, don't do that with me, because I wanted to like it, and I probably will also continue. But I do think that there are things about this that again could be tweaked to be better. Like I don't think this is a flawless book, and I don't think most books are flawless books, but I do wish that the way that the fandom talked about it was slightly different. I think that would have helped me out. But again, it's not the fandom's responsibility, but I would have appreciated that, because I've never, in my 8 years of being online in the book space, I've never had an experience like this where like I really like got so caught off guard by feeling unprepared for like an adult fantasy series. Like I've never, yes, I've experienced overhyped books before, but like not quite like this. I'm just wondering what it is about this series that made that happen, to where the fans are just like very solidly in like, this is great, but can't necessarily convey it. And why
Articulate
people,
what it is about it. That's great.
Yes, that's what, because even in the chat, some people are saying like, I don't know, it's just vibes. You know, like it's
just vibes. Okay,
that's what I've been hearing this entire time, and I was like, oh no, I will probably also like these vibes based on the people that are saying they like the vibes, because I tend to agree with them. So yeah, it was just a weird experience in that way. But I'm not like mad at the book or like mad at the fandom or whatever, and I will probably also continue at some point, and hopefully it be a better time with Jade War.
Yeah. That's it. What is the thing? I'm disappointed a little bit.
Yes, I'm not mad.
I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
Not mad. I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's different if we said like, oh, it was very slow paced and, you know, whatever it would be. And people were like, well, no, I found it fast paced. Like that's a difference of opinion. It was like the sudden, like if you say like, I don't know, it was the sudden people being like, yeah, the first one was slow paced, but because they felt like, wait, I hadn't heard that. Why am I just hearing this now?
Yes.
If you disagree, you disagree. That's fine. That's like different experiences. But it was very much like I felt like what I had heard about the book like was really different from what I actually got of the book, which is a weird experience to feel like, like, I don't know, the thing that I put in my mind because of how people talked about this book is not actually what I experienced when I got there. So
and then when you bring up those things, you're like, oh, well, yeah, that's correct. It's like,
wait, it's like right now. I'm like trying to like connect what I had heard with what I actually experienced. And then like, I don't know, all of that, which, you know, how much of it is, again, the book's fault. What it doesn't matter because that was my experience with the book. So anything else about this book? I mean, the fact that we talked about it for 37 minutes is
doing pretty good
with 3 people.
I do chuckle that we made Ice Plant Barbarians a longer live show than Jade City.
There were more of us here.
There were more of us.
However,
and there were more of us. I also did not have a ton of feelings about that book. And again, that was another one where expectations, reality did not match up.
That's been the trend with all of our books this year.
That's been the trend.
Expectation and reality are not meshing.
What we need to do is just not have expectations.
Okay.
Oh no.
How do we pick a book?
Yeah.
I did feel bad that I didn't like this book.
I know. We all wanted to. That's the problem. It's like we all were like invested in, like we were so excited for last time. Like,
every book
we're gonna have so much to talk about. I know.
Every book we're like,
well, also
so
like,
excited, wanting to like it, and then we're like, well,
as well as like themes of books this year. This also gave me like vibes or we actually talked about this when we read These Violent Delights, that
Yes.
people were like, oh, Jade City, like they made the comparison. And I think I had, I don't know if it was in chat or I'd just seen generally people be like, don't compare those two books, especially just because they're Asian inspired or whatever.
Yeah.
When I was reading, I was like, I get the comparison between these two books because it had a lot of the same sort of elements in terms of like the mafia and the political intrigue, but also I had a lot of the same sorts of problems with the book.
Feelings about them.
Yes, the feelings that I had about both books, I was like, these like similar in terms of the flat sort of characterization, the really slow pacing, portions of it where I
the
felt
choppiness of the book.
the choppiness. Like you aren't telling me the right portion of the story right now. I feel like there's all of these other interesting things around the story you're telling me, and I want to talk about all of that other stuff and not the stuff you're actually showing me.
The lack of it being actual fantasy, like
the lack of it
you could take the fantasy part out and it would be not different. Yeah.
And as I was reading it, I was like having deja vu of like this is like These Violent Delights all over again, at least like not the same story, but a lot of the elements and a lot of my experience
feeling,
feeling of the book was like the same.
Just without romance, really. I mean, there's like a little bit of a romance subplot in this, but it's not like the main thing.
Yeah. And both of them were a disappointment. And honestly, I think Fonda Lee's writing is better.
100%.
Yes. But yes, we're just on a roll right now.
I know. Like, what book do we think is going to break it? Well, no, I guess we shouldn't say that because we thought this was going to break it. I just enjoy things. Okay, I'm here to enjoy things.
Oh, Megan DNF this book. I probably would have at least.
I think I would have.
Yes.
Had it not been for a book club, I would have 100% DNF'd this.
Yeah. I didn't suffer through it. Yeah, I didn't suffer, but I probably would have. I would have probably continued, but I would have probably had the exact same experience if it wasn't for book club.
I'm just having a hard time with like all books right now. So something that's like this dense, I would have been like, I can't even read like a Disney inspired book right now. So like this is not the time for this either.
Man, what's happening in the stars that we can't read right now?
I know. Aries season, you just want to fight people.
Jade War will jump large spans of time without warning, and you just have to kind of keep up. That's a good warning. See, warn us.
Thank you.
Yes, I did hear that it does span large chunks of time, but I don't like when they do it without warning though.
I'm glad I didn't pick this up to read because I too had expectations and will wait until I'm in a better frame of reading mood. Yes, I think not lower your expectations, but I don't know. We went in going, this is going to be a 5-star read. So
yes.
That, and just go in expecting something that is very like political intrigue, lots of people talking, having meetings. There are like action sequences or like, moments peppered in, but
like
generally
gang war stuff. Yeah.
Generally I found it really slow. I feel like you have to be in that sort of like dense, slow reading mood in order to
100%.
All right, that's it. Sorry guys. Sorry to disappoint if you really enjoyed this. We do have our book. I don't even know, Jordan. I know this is not your vote, so sorry. But next,
I might not be here next month.
We're reading The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This wasn't our original pick for April. We had another book.
I think I'm going to read the other pick. Because that just sounds so much more like light and fluffy, and maybe my brain will like attach to that.
Well, I think the reason that we picked this one is because something happened on TikTok where, what was it, Sam, that I was talking about like wanting to read urban fantasy, or
you were saying wanting to read urban fantasy, and then I was trying to think of series, and I think we just said Samantha Shannon because Priory of the Orange Tree is so popular, and I wanted to continue. Like we needed a first book in a series that was like possibly like decent for urban fantasy because they typically start pretty slow.
Yeah.
So, and I've heard good things about that series.
I have heard mixed things.
One comes out way too slow. Those books come out like once every so many years, and I just
Jordan
won't do it.
Jordan, you can do it. You're a two-sided.
There's like 4 of them out right now.
I've heard mixed things. I've heard really good things, and then I've also heard some things about like the relationship and the dynamic that
sounds like you're not gonna like that part.
Makes it feel like I'm not going to like, or people have at least told me like, Maddie, you will not like this. So, but I am prepared. I'm like braced.
Yes, you were warned.
Ready. I was warned.
Yeah.
I've had this book pretty much since it came out, I feel like. So it's been on my TBR for a long time. Pretty excited.
That's the original cover.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's the original cover.
Oh, there's another cover?
They have different covers now.
Exclusive.
Yeah,
I think that's it, unless there's anything else. All right. Well, as always, we'll announce when it will hopefully be still in April, our April live show at the end of the month. So we'll let you guys know date and time. Hope you guys can join us. Hopefully it's a better experience for us all around. We appreciate you guys being here and for joining the chat and helping us talk through what happened here.
Yes.
All right, guys. We'll see you at the end of the month.
Bye.
Bye.